Morning, colleagues.
Morning, Peggy.
Morning.
We ready?
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. Yeah, so we're waiting for our speaker. I'm trying to check from the attendees if he's still not here, but he is supposed to join us at past.
Okay.
Yeah, just at the starting time. Yes.
Okay.
All thanks to Diksha for rescuing us.
Hello, Diksha.
Good morning, Methembeni. Good morning, Methembeni. Hi, Diksha. Are we ready to start? And it gives me pleasure speaking and presentation skills for the workplace. And thank you for taking this time to join us for what promises to be an insightful practical session designed to strengthen your communication skills and professional confidence. With me today are my two colleagues, Ms. Diksha Lala, behind the scenes, and Begim Zobe, who will be doing the vote of thanks later. I am now going to switch off my camera, and I'm sure that you have proof that I am a human being, a warm body. Thank you very much. Diksha, are we ready to start? Okay, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, I would like to share a few housekeeping arrangements. You will notice that your microphones and cameras are currently disabled to ensure the smooth running of the session. And second, opportunities for interaction will be provided during the program, particularly during the Q&A segment. So we encourage you to submit your questions and comments throughout the session using the Q&A feature or the chat box. And to protect your privacy, ladies and gentlemen, we kindly request that you do not share personal information such as your email address, your telephone number, or any other confidential details in the chat or Q&A section. Please also note that this session is being recorded. The recording will be available on Microsoft Teams once the live event is concluded. In addition, an edited version will be uploaded to our Unisa YouTube channel, and the link will be shared with you in the session later. So, ladies and gentlemen, to kickstart our program, we are so grateful that our speaker is already here. So today's presentation focuses on public speaking and presentation skills for the workplace. And this is an essential competency for career success in today's professional environment, whether communicating in meetings, delivering presentations, engaging stakeholders, or representing your organization. Effective public speaking, ladies and gentlemen, it's a skill that greatly enhances your professional impact and career growth. So we trust that today's session will equip you with practical strategies, techniques, and insights to communicate with great confidence, clarity, and professionalism. So to officially commence the program, it is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to introduce our speaker, a distinguished legal practitioner and an admitted attorney of the High Court, whose work reflects both depth of expertise and commitment to advancing Africa's legal industry. Ladies and gentlemen, I was and construction law across the African continent, having advised on complex high-value cross-border transactions and infrastructure projects in multiple jurisdictions. His professional journey spans leading international law firms and global legal technology environments, where he has played a pivotal role in shaping legal strategies within highly regulated sectors. His area of expertise includes commercial contract, negotiation, dispute resolution under internationally recognized frameworks such as FIDIC and Next 3, foreign investment strategy and legal due diligence. Through this work, he has contributed to significant mining and infrastructure developments across countries, including South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Mali, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Angola. Currently, he is serving as a chairperson of the legal subcommittee of the German Competence Center for Mining and Mineral Resources in Sub-Saharan Africa. Our speaker, ladies and gentlemen, continues to influence legal thought and practice within sector. His leadership and contributions have been recognized through his inclusion among the top 10 leaders leading the way in the metal and mining sector. 2024. Beyond his professional achievements, ladies and gentlemen, our speaker is deeply committed to mentorship and development of emerging professionals, reflecting a broader vision of building capacity and excellence across the continent. And today's event is one of such of his initiatives. It is therefore with great pleasure that we welcome our guest speaker, ladies and gentlemen, today. A warm round of applause as we welcome Mr. Methembeni Moyo onto our virtual stage with a big round of applause. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Makanya. Thank you for the invitation. It's my second time giving a talk to Unisa students. I enjoy giving a talk to Unisa students because I myself am a Unisa graduate. My father actually also studied through Unisa, so I have never felt a stigma or I've never had an inferior complex about being a Unisa student, partly because I think that was cured for me by my father. So when I studied at Unisa, I didn't feel less than. I just thought of it actually as a better way to do life, because you had the beauty of studying and working at the same time, which means by the time I finished my studies, unlike my peers, I also already had some work experience. So I always like telling Unisa students that never feel less than, never feel inferiority complex. And in fact, every time I encounter Unisa graduates in the workplace, they always seem to be high-functioning individuals, very independent thinkers, and very self-resourceful, because they are not used to being spoon-fed a lot of things. So it's good to be speaking amongst, I would say, my alma mater. And yeah, so welcome everyone. And how we structure these talks is that we will, perhaps I want to just check if everyone can hear me. Maybe that's the prudent thing to do before we carry on and share my presentation. Okay, looks like everyone can hear me. I see some thumbs up. And is it loud and clear? Okay. Brilliant. I see a hand from, and I don't know if Ms. Makanya, if those hands mean people can't hear. I see one hand from Alande. Okay. I think everyone can hear me. It's also great to see such a great turnout. 305 people. That's amazing. I think the reason why there's such a great turnout is probably because public speaking is one of the most important and yet misunderstood skills in the working world, and just in the world, in whatever profession or calling you are in. Being able to speak to people, being able to speak to a lot of people, being able to speak to just a few people, is a very, very important skill. So I'll start now and share my presentation. Pardon me, I just need to open it quickly. Okay, I'm struggling to share it, Ms. Makanya. I don't know if you could assist me. I think I have it now. Okay, I think I've got it now, don't worry. Trying to make it bigger. Just bear with me, please. Okay. All right. So I assume everyone can see my presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I've titled this masterclass Unlocking a 21st Century Superpower. I cannot emphasize enough how much of a superpower being able to address a group of people, whether it's a small group of people all the way up to a large audience, or 2,000, 1,500, 100 people, whatever the case is. It is an extremely powerful skill to have and to nurture and to hone. And I would say it is probably one of the most important skills as you transition from moving from being a student to a professional. It's a first century superpower, and I'll tell you why. This is how we're going to structure our talk. We'll have just an introduction of why it's a 21st century superpower. We'll talk about the basics. We'll talk about practical tips, and then last, how to actually get started. Okay. Why is public speaking a 21st century superpower? Now, just to break the ice, I will just ask one of the students to try and give me an answer. Whoever is online. Just one. First come, first serve. Yes. I think I'll unmute Is it Kumo? Wasetsana?
Yeah, it's Kumo. Thank you so much. I think
Yes.
for me, why is it a superpower? Because it gives you a seat at the table. Also, it gives you the ability to influence and to articulate yourself correctly, and even be able to persuade the audience. Thank you.
That's a brilliant answer, Kumo. I want to take it a step further. It's a superpower because people are actually starved of human interaction. People are stuck behind laptops, they're stuck behind phones, they're stuck behind tablets. Many people work from home now. A lot of the content out there is generated by AI and large language models. Every time you read a LinkedIn post, you can almost, you can hear, you can almost taste. I want to even use the word taste. You can almost smell the AI behind a lot of our content, a lot of our posts. You know, even sport isn't fun anymore. You know, Messi keeps winning. You know, it's heartbreaking, and the African teams keep losing. You know, it's just everything feels like it's just made by robots. And people in the 21st century, more so than in the 19th century and in are very hungry to be convinced, to be influenced, and to be spoken to by a human. So if you are half decent, you don't even need to be a great public speaker. If you're just a half decent public speaker in our century, in our lifetime, you actually have a superpower because you are competing with lifeless, robotic content. However, what makes our job as public speakers, what will make your job in addressing people a bit more difficult than people from the olden days is that people's attention spans have shrunk significantly. We'll touch on that later. But I just wanted to set the scene. What are you going to expect today? I want to take you on a journey. I want to take you on a journey on unlocking a 21st century superpower. I want you to understand that if you hone the skill, you are actually getting one of the most powerful tools anyone can ever wield in any time in history, However, in our time, I think that power is enhanced. So just to recap why it matters. Human connection and the ability to influence decision makers remain the most important professional skill today. Exactly as they were in the classical Greco-Roman times, when this skill was known as the art of rhetoric. The purpose of public speaking has not changed in over 2,000 years. Whether it's addressing a courtroom, a boardroom, a lecture hall, the goal is still the same, to convince people. Now, the difference from when Caesar would stand up in the Roman times, or Alexander the Great will stand up, or Winston Churchill's famous Second World War speech when he said, "We will fight on the beaches, we will fight in the air, we will fight everywhere, never, never give up." The difference between those times, or who remembers the great Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech when he said, "I have a dream. I have a dream that one day America will be free. I have a dream." Everyone remembers the "I have a dream" speech. Some other speeches are also very famous, but a bit naughty. Who remembers the late President Robert Mugabe's famous line at the United Nations? "So, Blair, keep your England and I'll keep my Zimbabwe. I have not asked for 1 square inch of Britain, nor I have asked for 1 square inch of London. So, Blair, keep your England and I'll keep my Zimbabwe." If you look at is dotted with amazing speeches, whether for the good or for the bad. Who remembers President Obama's campaign rhetoric when he became the first Black president of the United States of America? He said a very simple line: yes, we can. Yes, we can. That's all he said. And he won an election on saying, yes, we can. President Trump, in a different way, copied Obama by limiting a political idea into a very simple two-phrase term or three-phase term by simply saying, make America great again. So rhetoric, as you will see, the art of public speaking, the art of convincing people has never gone away. All I'm saying is that I think it's actually more important in our lifetime. It's more important because people are starved of it. In the olden days, people used to huddle around a radio to hear Nelson Mandela speak, to hear the news. People now have phones, they have TikTok, they doom scroll. In meetings, people are on their phones, they're not even paying attention. People are starved of great stories. They are starved of great speeches. So if you can get the skill and start working on it and start practicing it, it will unlock unbelievable opportunities for your career. And you'll see this talk, as I do with my other talks, I'll give you practical tips. I'll also demystify public speaking for you. And I'll give you examples and the basics of how to start and finish a public address. And then right at the end, we'll have a time for question and answers. Now, where do you find public speaking? You find it everywhere. You'll find it in all aspects of your job. From something as simple as a team meeting, where it's just about 3 to 4 to 5 people, all the way up to a large audience like the one we have today. You will always need public speaking. So if you're someone who says, I'm an introvert, I'm scared of talking, I don't think you should give yourself a mental block about it. I think it's something you need to understand and be aware that you will always need it. So let's start with the basics. There are 5 fundamentals that hold every good public address together, no matter the topic. So you always have a beginning, you always have a middle, and you always have an ending. Many of you, I assume, since you're at Unisa, since you're doing degrees and various other courses, you passed matric. Or if you're from the British education system, you passed O levels and or A levels. Now, since grade 1, you would have been told that a essay or composition or story or speech always has an introduction, a middle, and a conclusion. That is how humans are actually created. That is how the mind works. People want to have a start, the meat, and an ending. Even our meals, if you think about it, have a starter, a main course, and a dessert. And if you think about public speaking just like that, a starter should be an appetizer. It shouldn't be something which makes you full. It should be something that makes you look forward to the main course. And the ending should be a dessert. It should be something sweet. It should be something which will make you want to come back again. It should be something that will make people say, geez, I enjoyed that. Let's start with the beginning. You always need to open with something that earns attention. You can start with a question, a fact, or a short story. Tell the audience where you are taking them. That's very important. It's in fact, the beginning is more important than the middle and the ending in our era. Why I say that is that because of the internet and because of YouTube and TikTok shorts and Facebook shorts and Instagram shorts, people's attention spans are ridiculously short. Ridiculously short. If you do not catch people's attention within 2 minutes, if you do not articulate yourself within the first 2 minutes, if you do not set the scene within the first 2 minutes, if you do not get people excited within the first 2 minutes, you'll lose them for the rest of your public address. You lose them for the rest of the meeting. The attention is gone. But on the flip side, if you grab their attention, because they're not used to hearing people talk anymore, you'll have them for a very long time, actually. And I hope I have you guys for a very long time, because I'm actually looking at my presentation. I can't see the participants, so I don't know if people are joining or dropping off. So this is also a test of my public speaking skills. If I can grab your attention right at the beginning, then I have you. Practical ways to grab people's attention. I like starting with setting the scene. I always tell people what they're going to get. I tell them that you're going to get this today. What I started with during this talk is, for example, I told you that I'm about to take you on a journey of earning a superpower. So now you're thinking, okay, I want a superpower. Let me listen. Right? Who doesn't want to be super? Okay. Another tip, you could start off with a personal story. In my public addresses, in many instances, I do start off with a personal story. Because I'm a parent, a lot of my personal stories revolve around my sons. Children always give good content for funny stories because they're funny. You can also start with current affairs. What's happening in the news? What's happening in the world today? Anything to immediately grab attention. But I also think it's always good for people to know what you're about to talk about. And then we move to the middle. The middle is where there's a lot of facts. That's where the content really is. This is where you're trying to actually get your message across. This is where you're actually trying to be, I would say, factual. This is where the meat of your address is. This is where you're giving people information. This is where you're giving people the relevant part of your address. So if your address has any data, any statistics, it's got any case studies, it's got any feedback, or it's or this is where the information, this is where call it the dry but important information part of your address comes in. And then you have an ending. So I always leave people asking for more. I intentionally try to finish my talks on a cliffhanger. If I was a movie director in another life, my movies will have a part 1, part 2, and part 3. I'll always make sure I finish part 1, people thinking, surely there has to be a part 3, you know? And I think that's how you should think about when you're talking. You know, don't talk too long. Don't be boring at the end. Leave people wanting more. And you can leave people on a cliffhanger. And typically, if you do that, people may want to come to you after your public address and talk to you even more. People will always remember what you said. Again, how do you do that practically? You can leave them with a one-liner, something to remember, something to go home with. You can give them homework and say, listen, I want you to go home and practice X, Y, Z, or I want you to go home and do this. You can give them a challenge. You can say, I want to challenge your thinking. I want you to do this and that. You can tell them a story right at the end. Just like how you can open us with a story, you can use another story just to close off. Okay, so that's the basic structure of a public address. It never changes. A good beginning, you set the scene. A middle, your information, heavy there. That's where you put the information across to your audience, and then your ending must almost be as captivating as your beginning. It summarizes and wraps everything up nicely in a bow, but ideally, you want people to wonder. You want people to want more. You want to utilize people's imagination. Okay. And then these are the basics, right? Voice projection. Today, I'm speaking a bit louder than my other presentation because I'm actually trying to show you practically what public speaking or public address is. People must hear your voice go up and down. People must feel the emotion in your voice. Think about that one uncle in the village if you're Black. I'm sorry if you are white, you may not get this. But if you've got, everyone knows that if you're Xhosa is Lalin, or if you're Zulu, Ekaya, or if you're Shona, Kumusha, everyone knows that one uncle who is a brilliant storyteller, and he just has you at the edge of your seat. Do you know what probably his best skill is? Is he has command over his voice. His voice is like the waves of the sea. It goes up and down with the emotions and the pace of the story. So public speaking is not just projecting your voice for people to hear you. It shouldn't be just monotonous, as in one tone, loud, and it's just one thing. No, it should go up and down and soft. I know great public speakers who don't even speak loudly sometimes. They're just great. They have a way of drawing you in with their voice. And so it's not only just about making sure you're audible and you're loud, but I want you to think about the inflections in a voice. You know, think about that one uncle who's a great storyteller. Their voice goes up and down. That's important. So it's not only just about projection, but it's also those inflections in your voice. Whenever I want to put across a serious point, my voice starts to get quiet. I start to speak a bit slower, because I want the audience to know that this is serious. Whenever I want to get across something which is funny, I start by laughing myself sometimes. I start by, you can also see my facial expressions. I start smiling. Okay. And that's how a great storyteller tells a story. His voice rides and falls, or her voice rides and falls with the emotions of the story. And then very important is eye contact. So another practical tip about storytelling, public addressing, is that people need to see your face and they need to be able to connect with the emotions of your address. A practical tip I can give you is that pick one person in your audience and look at them. Not good to just look at nothing like the roof, whiteboard marker, or the computer screen. Pick a person and look at them and make eye contact with them. By doing that, you'll be able to literally, through that person's eyes, in fact, you're connected with everyone else's eyes. Because the audience, the feedback from the audience is that they can see your eyes are engaged with them. They can't tell that you've just picked one person in the audience. Your eyes look like you're looking at them. But if you start looking up to the side, or you start looking through people, then you've lost the room. Pick a person, look at them. You don't have to stick with that person. You can jump to the next person, but always make sure your eyes lock with that person. You know the typical saying that the eyes are the window to the soul. So if you look at people's eyes, you are actually doing some soul work. Public speaking is a type of soul food. It's a type of soul exercise. So you need to be able to read the room. You need to be able to connect with people's eyes. Okay. And then preparation. Just dress smartly. I know this sounds simple, but if you be dressed for the part, because if the way you look is off, it will take away attention from what you want to say. Okay? So it seems like a very simple thing, but it's important. 2 lessons about dress etiquette is that first impressions last. If your dress sense is off or unprofessional or is not suited for the environment which you are in, if you are going to address a group of angry workers at a strike and you are a labor lawyer and you come there with a tie, a red tie, that's already shows danger. A red tie, a black suit, black shoes, a briefcase, and you're coming out of your black Mercedes-Benz and you think you're going to address people and convince them to go back to work, they'll stone you. But maybe if you get there with a shirt, can be a collared shirt, it can be a golf shirt, some chinos, some semi-formal shoes. You're not coming out of a Mercedes-Benz, maybe you're coming out of a bakkie this time. You're not speaking in English, just mixing vernacular and English, and you're saying, comrades, 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 I know, I hear you. But then they can listen to your but, just based on your presentation, on your personal presentation. So that's something which you should never forget. If you're about to do a public address, I'm talking about even small rooms, like if I know that I'm going to have a team meeting or a business meeting, I dress a bit smarter at work. If I know that I'm not even talking about just large crowds, even if it's just a team meeting. Some of you guys who are working will have Monday team meetings. If it's your turn to present, be a bit smarter. Immediately, you will command the room because you're the smart one. You're smart both in dress code and both in what you're about to say. If you're too informal and casual and it's your day to present, people won't take you seriously. So you have to understand that humans are very sensory creatures. How you look, how you sound is important. The ups and downs in your voice are important. Your eye contact is important. And your dress code is important. All those things constantly are painting a story for your audience, and you have to have command of each of them. Then last under basics is preparation versus delivery. You see, a lot of people miss being a great public speaker because they focus too much on preparation and not enough on delivery. This is their speech and try cram it and memorize it like it's an exam. Public speaking is not an exam. It's just good old-fashioned storytelling. And I don't care if you're white, black, or Indian, or colored. All of us here are Africans, and storytelling is in our blood. We are an oral culture. We're not a written culture. That's why a lot of our history is not written. A lot of our history is actually written by colonial masters. It's not even written by indigenous people because our traditions are oral. So if you go and write down your speech, point A to point B, if you look at my presentations here, my points are very short because it's not about writing an essay and then reading it back to you. Terrible. People never connect with you. When you prepare, use the week to think about your speech. I don't want you to write it. So even if you've got a presentation at work. So by the way, guys, when I talk about speech, I'm a large audience. these principles apply also to something as small as a team meeting, okay? So whenever I've got a big presentation to make or a big talk to make, what I do, my preparation starts like this. I just think about what I'm going to say. I don't write it down. I think about it for the first 5 days. Because by thinking about it, you are telling yourself the story. You're almost imagining yourself telling the story. If you're a girl who's got a best friend and you've just met this charming young man, or your crush has finally approached you, and you want to go and tell your bestie, you're not going to literally write a full-on article saying, dear bestie, today I want to tell you about the most romantic day of my life. My crush finally spoke to me. You immediately, in fact, you don't do that. You start thinking about, yo, I can't wait to see Yolanda because she won't believe this. And that's how the journey of a great story starts. You start imagining what you're going to communicate. It's preparation. You don't start by writing it down. You don't even start by researching it. You start by imagining it. Once you've imagined it, you then move to doing the research and the jotting down points. Note I said jotting down points, not writing an essay. Because if you over-prepare and you write too many copious notes, what will happen is that you'll start doing this. Today, I'm going to speak about public speaking. Public speaking is very important. It is important because it can be a 21st century superpower. And do this, it'll do this. Firstly, I will speak about the basics. Then I'll speak. Do you see the difference between that type of address and a natural, free-flowing address like you're just talking? So it starts with the imagination. Okay. Right. And then now we're going to move on to practical tips for a great address. I'm going to give you a few tips on, I like practical tips because it helps you demystify something. You know, something may seem massive and you may think that public speaking is only for the chosen few, extroverts and people with charisma. You know, you might be shocked. Some great public speakers are probably in their private lifetime introverts. You might be shocked to hear that some great public speakers had to work hard at it and it didn't come naturally to them. So the reason why I give these practical tips is to make it seem accessible, possible, and not just for a chosen few. Not like, no. That guy is a natural. I'm not saying that there are no people with natural abilities. No, I'm just saying that like any other skill, like any other vocation, it can be learned, it can be honed, and then it can be practiced and you can get better at it. Okay, so it's not just for the chosen few. It's not for the chosen few charismatic people. Okay, it's for everyone. So one practical tip, I think I touched on this in the beginning, is setting the scene. Okay, you can start off with painting a picture. You can give your audience a place, a moment, or a character to picture. So your message lands as an experience, not just information. My favorite technique, because I consider myself more of a storyteller than just a public speaker. In fact, if you look at a lot of people's LinkedIn pages right now, they love saying, no one says as one of their skills, public speaking. That's boring. They love saying storyteller. I was just before I came to this talk today, I was looking at our law firm's head of marketing. The email signature says chief storyteller. You know, people love stories. So a great way to get a message across is to tell stories. Now, your whole public address is a story, right? Now, you can put stories within that story. You can tell a story for the purpose of comparing. And tell a story for the purposes of evoking emotions. You can tell a story to make people feel angry. You can tell a story to show people that it's time to act and to create a sense of urgency. I thought it was normal. Third time, Unisa was beaten. She fell in an awkward position, hit the back of her head. She wasn't paralyzed, but unfortunately, she lost to speak. What a cruel outcome for someone whose superpower was intelligence. Only James had probably broken a leg or an arm. Maybe Unisa was going to heal. But gender-based violence took away Unisi's most important thing. It took away her speech. She couldn't talk. She was told by her grandmother to be silent when she was 16. She told herself to be silent when she was abused when she was married. And itself had silenced her forever. Ladies and gentlemen, won't you tonight help me raise money? Give women a mouthpiece not to let this terrible scourge go unspoken. Can you partner with us and help us be the voice of the voiceless? Thank you. Now, which version would raise 2 million rand? I can give it to the audience and I want some feedback. Anyone can speak, first come, first serve.
Nogusa Tubazana.
Yes, Nogusa.
Definitely the second version.
Yeah.
Because it is narrated and it has background of how the abused has started and how much impact does it affect you when you are ignoring the abuse as from the young age up until you get older. Yeah. So definitely the second version will raise you a mirror.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's a story within the story, right? So I wasn't asking for money. I didn't even mention the words money, if you think about it. All I did is tell a story, and I asked at the end, I said, help us partner to give the voiceless a voice, to give a voice to the voiceless. Okay? Option 1 is just statistics. Option 2 is emotions. And that's what, and by the way, this is not only for large audiences, but even small audiences. You're always trying to speak to someone's heart, and then the mind will follow. But if you speak to someone's mind, the heart really follows. People actually don't make decisions with their mind, they make decisions with their heart. Those of you who read the Bible or any other Old Eastern text, languages like Hebrew, very ancient languages like Hebrew, Arabic, they talk about man's will and man's heart and man's emotions and man's separating your mind and your heart and your soul is a Western concept. But ancient concepts, they talk about man's heart or man's will general. We make decisions generally with our emotions as opposed to our minds. To separate the mind and the emotion. So you're better off appealing to someone's emotion as opposed to someone's intellect. I'll go back to presentation mode. So that was a practical, and I try to use all the tips that I've told you. I used the story within a story. Just before the story started, I set the scene. I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you a story about Nomsa. So suddenly people are saying, okay, Nomsa, okay, he's telling us a story about Nomsa. I want to hear a story about Nomsa. I don't want to hear statistics. And I would love to hear a story about Nomsa. So I set the scene. My voice kept going up and down. When it was said, I was quiet. Okay. Right. Let's go back to presentation mode. Okay. So I've talked about a story within the story. Another one you could do is a personal anecdote, something about yourself. It can be short, an honest story from your own life, which builds instant credibility and warmth. Audiences trust a speaker who is willing to be a little bit human, who can make fun of themselves. Okay? A fun fact, and let me give you an example. Whenever I consider myself, by God's grace, I think it's a God-given talent, but I've also had a lot of practice and have a lot of exposure to public speaking. I'm fortunate because my dad is a pastor and I grew up watching public speaking, right? Because I mean, every Sunday I would see my dad preach. So public speaking may seem like it comes naturally to me, but I think I was exposed to it at an early age. Okay. But even though I consider myself someone who's had a lot of exposure to public speaking and who knows how to hold an audience and to capture an audience, I sweat a lot. Okay, so that's by the time the speech is done, I'm always dripping, but not like from the forehead or anything, just from my armpits. So even though I might seem entertaining, funny, serious, even if I can get a standing ovation, sometimes I've even gotten a standing ovation. I'll be sweating. Okay, so that's a personal anecdote, which you know, you should be willing to even make fun of yourself. Don't be too serious, you know. Make fun of yourself. Let people laugh. Make people connect with you as a human being, especially if you're in a position of leadership. Maybe you're leading a team as a boss. Be serious. Make fun of yourself. Just say, yo, this happened to me, and then it disarms your team members, because suddenly they're not speaking to their boss. They're not listening to their boss address them. They're now listening to a human who suffers from the same weaknesses and challenges as them. Okay, so a personal anecdote, be willing to make fun of yourself, make yourself seem human and fallible, just like the next person. And then this one is very important, guys. Just be conversational. You know, it doesn't always have to be a great speech. You know, you're not Braveheart. Those who have watched Braveheart or Troy. You're not trying to rally soldiers to go to war. Sometimes just talk to people. In Zulu, or you can say, look. When close, I can say good teta. Just converse with people. Just chat. Have a chat. You know, in big corporates these days, they love having something called town halls, where the CEO gives the team the results of the year. He sets the vision for the year. Now, it will be very awkward if the CEO starts speaking like he's rallying the troops. Like, colleagues, this year has been tough. Our share price is down. Our competitors are winning market share. But we'll never surrender. We'll fight. I mean, that won't land nicely. Maybe if you're Rassie Erasmus and you're trying to get the Springboks to win, yeah, maybe you can do that. But read the room and be conversational. The easiest way to public speak is just to be yourself and talk. Like you're just talking to your friend, literally. Like, guys, today I'm going to present the way forward. I think there are a lot of opportunities for us. And I think we really need to act fast because, guys, we could win here. I think there are a lot of wins for us. If we get our marketing right, I'm really encouraged. James, remember we had that chat the other day about how people are starting to buy our product. Yeah, let's not give up. What do you guys think? You know, doesn't sound like a great speech, but trust me, people engage with a conversational style, especially for small audiences. Be conversational. The bigger the audience, the more speechy it will sound. The smaller the audience, the more conversational it will sound. Okay. And then less is more. Don't keep people hanging on for long. I'm not looking at my time. I'm sorry. I might speak a lot. It's an occupational hazard. I love doing this. But don't keep people hanging on for too long. Their attention spans are short. And then your concepts must be simple. If you realize during the speech, I have not used big words. I have not used difficult concepts for you guys to grasp and remember. The simpler, the better. Okay? Simple stories, simple concepts, simple vocabulary, simple words. The simpler, the better. The next thing is to read the room. Don't speak about Kaizer Chiefs to a room full of Sundown supporters. Don't talk about Pirates to a room full of Kaizer Chiefs supporters. Read the room and also read the responses of your room. Read the emotions of the room. If people are starting to get tired, if people are starting to lose concentration, you have to read the room. Okay. Now, practical tips on how you can start. I said earlier, like any skill worth having, public speaking is built one small deliberate rep at a time, one step at a time. You can actually start small. Start small by volunteering to speak at various different functions. It can be family functions, it can be work. You need to start small. Start with small audiences and keep going. Okay? And then you practice. Now, before I go, I'm going to give you one last speech. This is not my speech. I'm paraphrasing the speech. I'm stealing it from Martin Luther King. He is my favorite public speaker. He was great. He could hold an audience. I mean, after this, the homework I'm going to give you is, if you just want to feel motivated and you just want to just have something good to watch on YouTube, just watch any number of Martin Luther King Jr.'s junior speeches. My favorite one is not the I Have a Dream speech. That's his greatest one, but it's not necessarily my favorite one. My favorite one is If Only I Had Sneezed. Or if that is a title of a speech by a civil rights activist, imagine if Mandela, right? He's about to liberate South Africa. And the title of one of his speeches, and people are cramming into a hall in Soweto, and it's being printed on newspapers and pamphlets. And the title of the speech is If Only I Had Sneezed. Already such a simple topic. Martin Luther King sneezing, Mandela sneezing. Oh, I want to listen to this. So anyway, that was the title of his speech, If Only I Had Sneezed. And what happened with Martin Luther King is that someone tried to kill him by stabbing him with a blade about 2 centimeters away from his heart. Luckily, the blade was stuck. They took it out at hospital, and he didn't die. The medical professional told him that if he had sneezed, the was going to nick his heart and he would have died. So then this is how he tells his speech. He says, I received a letter the other day from a little girl, a little white girl, who said, Dear Dr. King, saw on the news that a bad person, I'm paraphrasing here, that a bad person had stabbed you very close to your heart. Yeah, that if only you had sneezed, you would have died. Then Martin Luther King says, and then this little girl says, Dear Dr. King, I'm so glad you didn't sneeze. And that was a letter. She was just so glad Dr. King didn't sneeze. Then Martin Luther King says, I'm also glad that I didn't sneeze. Because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't be here today to see the freedom of America. If only I had sneezed, I wouldn't be able to climb those steps on Capitol Hill and claim freedom for all Americans. If I had sneezed. So he took something as simple as sneezing and turned it into a powerful concept. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this speech, Dr. King's speech, my own speech, has done 2 things for you. 3 things, actually. Number 1, I hope you are inspired to realize that public speaking can truly be a superpower, both for small and large audiences. Number 2, I hope it has I've demystified it for you. In other words, I've made it simple. In other words, I've made it something attainable and not something which is only for the chosen charismatic few. I've made it something which you could also be inspired to start doing. And I hope I have made it practical. If we have time, I don't know if we have time, we can take a few questions, but that's the end of my class. Thank you.
Wow. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for such an inspiring presentation. Thank you, Methembeni, for such an engaging presentation. I think many of us joined today's session hoping to improve our public speaking skills. And after listening to you, some of us may even be brave enough to volunteer for the next presentation at work or with our study groups, wherever, or in our churches or in our youth groups or wherever we may be. So, ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for our guest speaker today before we can move on to the question and answer section. Okay. Diksha, you are going to help me here with to manage the question and answer session. But let's see any hands, if there are any hands, before we go to the chat's questions. Okay, Methembeni there, the hands are there. Perhaps you can take Esbola.
Yes.
Esbola, are you still there? Diksha, can you open the mic?
The mic is available. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for asking questions. Methembeni, do you do classes on public speaking? Because I'm very interested. I am standing for local government elections, and I'm shortly due to address a number of ratepayers. Thank you.
Have you ever heard about what they say? I'm not Ghanaian, but have you ever heard about what they say about Ghanaians?
No, I haven't.
They never say no. You call him as a plumber, and then you say, "Do you do tiling?" Then he says, "Ah, of course, okay, I do tiling, I do roofing, I do everything." So, although I'm a lawyer, and I've never done classes on, this is my first class on public speaking. I do a lot of public speaking, but I don't teach about public speaking. This is the first time I've taught about public speaking. But as a good hustler, of course, I do a lot of lessons on public speaking, my friend. This is something I do all the time.
Okay, thanks. So how do we follow you?
Look, I mean, I don't know if my slideshow has my contact details. Let's see right up to the end.
Okay, thank you.
Let me know. It does. Does it? It doesn't. Okay, let me give you my number on. I'll put my number and email address on the chat. But I'm very happy to give lessons to people and chat. I love giving back to society as a responsible citizen. So I'm just going to type my mobile number 07804996663, and my email is moyo@nsdv.co.za. There we go. Those are my details. Let me know if you don't get them, but I can just.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. They are on the chat. Thank you a lot, and take care. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Methembeni. We can move to Mabone Mashupie. Mabone, you can go ahead and ask your question. Mabone, please unmute yourself, Mabone. Mabone, can you please unmute your microphone, please? Good, you can go ahead.
Yes. Hello? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to say that we truly appreciate the lesson that you've given us today, and we find it very beneficial, especially for myself. I find it to be a very beneficial lesson in my career, and it will help me going forward. Yes, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I think we'll share the slideshow as well, so you can always return to it. And I think this will be recorded on YouTube, so you can always return to it and refer to it.
Thank you, Mabone. Can we move to Tembile? Ladies Kosana, you can unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, May Hazel. My question is, I wanted to.
You're very faint.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Still quite faint, but try a bit louder. It's a bit better, but louder.
Okay, so my question is, what do you think about the adverts on YouTube that claim you can become a public speaker in 30 days, promising that they will help you develop your thinking on your feet, to speak with confidence. I don't know if you've seen such advert. And they also like highlighting that if you're over 40, so some of us are over 40, are always, you know, are tempted to do that. So that's the first part. The second part, I apologize if I sound a tribalistic, but I've noticed that several people that I know, about 5 now, including you now, who studied and completed their A-levels in Zim, seem to be very strong in public speaking. Is it something that's part of your schooling system, or the subject that is particularly teaching you guys on that? I know you mentioned that you personally learned it through your father, who was a pastor. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is what I tell them. So I used to volunteer and teach English and a bit of history. So there are ways to onboard these skills. I think in Zim, there's a culture of loving current affairs. So I think if you have any friends from Zim, they're always talking about politics. They're not good at holding their government to account like South Africans, but they're very good at talking about it. So if you want to become a good public speaker, other practical tips. So I don't think it's something inherent in the academic curriculum. I think it's just about it's more cultural. So people like listening to the news, reading the newspaper. So what I would say is that if you want to be good at public speaking, it's funny, but you got to read a lot of newspapers, like actual real newspapers. It's weird, but somehow it will help you. You've got to listen to the news a lot. So listen to the drive time shows, the Bongani Bingwas and those type of shows, and listen to the evening news every day. That somehow it will give you general knowledge, and it will start making your public speaking better. And then for your other question about being over 40, you know that the older you are, the easier it is to be a public speaker, because the fear starts going away. The fear of failure starts going away. So my tip to older public speakers or people who are addressing crowds or whatever, and you're older, my tip would be more conversational style. You know that one Malume in the village who doesn't care anymore, with his girlfriend, no one can even kuza him anymore. He's just reached that age, like he doesn't care. So when you're 40, over 40 rather, just remember that you actually have gone through a lot of life experiences. Have that bit of stubbornness, like, I'm just gonna talk, just gonna say what's on my mind. Obviously, obviously be professional, but I think your power if you're over 40 is don't do these tricks and gimmicks. Use the conversational style a bit more, because there you can draw from your personal experiences. Because when you're over 40, you've gone through life. You can talk about many different situations. So I would say if you're over 40, be very conversational. Talk about your life experiences. Talk about things you've done. Just be free and be yourself. Be conversational.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Thembi. The next question, Methembeni, it will come from Tsenulo Muluhwana. Over to you, Tsenulo. You can unmute.
Good afternoon, everyone. A quick thank you to Mr. Moyo and the Unisa team for taking time to share, creating this platform where you can share your knowledge and experience with us today. I personally truly appreciate the opportunity to learn from someone with your depth of leadership experience. And if you do ever offer any coaching, courses or classes, I'll probably be the first person to see it, because I actually follow you on LinkedIn. So I look forward to that. I have 2 questions today. My first question is based on many of us can, learn public speaking techniques, as we are learning here with this workshop, we can learn online. But, you know, very few people become, you know, people whose words genuinely influence decisions and inspire action. Looking back over your years in business and other industries that you are in, what habits could you say or qualities transformed you from being someone who could simply present information into someone whose presence carries executive influence? My second question is, when you walk into a boardroom in the work that you do, or into a high-level meeting where you are the youngest, the newest, or the least experienced person, how do you establish credibility before you've even started speaking? Thank you.
Okay, I think there's a few questions. I think there are about 3 questions in 3 in 1, 3 for 1 special.
Yeah.
The first one is, can you remind me of the first one? You said techniques, how I've learned it over the years.
Yes. My first question was, like a few people, you know, can gather and gain the speaking techniques, but a few people can actually, you know, use their words genuinely, you know, to influence decisions and inspire actions. Looking back at your years of experience and, you know, you speaking, you know, in public, in boardrooms, in charity, you know, events, what habits or qualities do you believe transformed you from just being someone who can present information into someone whose presence, you know, carries executive influence? You can influence people and not just present data or information to them.
Yeah, I think it started small, okay? So I think it's small audiences as a start. So I never spoke. I think the biggest audience I've spoken to is where I actually met Mrs. Makanya, who's running this program, was at the Kgalema Motlanthe Foundation, where I was speaking to thousands of people, many big CEOs and that type of stuff. That happened last year. But throughout my career, it started off with some very small groups. So that's why I say start small. So I would say the first tip is to start small. Then eventually you'll gain the confidence. And then the second and probably the most important tip I could say is you need to remove. So one of my bosses, when I was still working in Harare, he gave me advice which I'll cherish to this day. He said, if you try knock on a closed door, the worst they can say is no. You can't get fired for trying, and you can't get arrested for trying. I'm like, oh, yeah. When I thought of it, like, yeah. So if you go to someone like a top CEO and try, like someone very important or a minister, whatever, worst they can do is either ghost you or say no. Like, there's no crime because you wrote a letter to the president. It's not a crime. And if they say no, it's like, you still got your job, you still got your life. Like, if they say yes, and that door really opens, the upside is amazing. So you have to remove the fear of failure, because the downside of failure is literally just a no or being ghosted or being ignored. The upside is, yes, you can't imagine it. And then lastly, to answer your other question, I also think it's just by God's grace. I think some of the things you can't really explain. I think for me, it's prayer and God's help. I mean, I'm a person of faith, and I believe I pray before I do these types of things. So I do not take credit, and I credit it to my faith in Christ and in God. So yeah, but those are the tips I can give you. Is start small and have zero fear of failure, because the people who hold power to make decisions, the worst they can say is no. No one can actually fire you for trying to do something good or innovate.
Thank you.
Wow, that was so profound. That was a very profound response. Ladies and gentlemen, seeing that time is against us, we will be wrapping up. I will only give Lebogo an opportunity, and then I will read a few of the questions that are on the chat box. Will that be fine with you, Methembeni?
That's perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Makanya.
Okay, great. Lebogo, then you can go ahead and ask your questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is it important to move around when you give a speech, or it depends on the kind of podium? For example, in Parliament, the way they arrange the sittings, you can see that there is no way in which you can move around. Is it indeed depend on a platform, or it's just normal to give speech moving around?
That's a very good question. And I didn't touch on body gestures and body language, so apologies for that. But that's a brilliant question, Libo. And I know there are some schools of thoughts which say you shouldn't play with your hands, put your hands away. But now imagine if you put your hands away, immediately your body does this. And if people say, don't move around, people get distracted. Now you're going to do a speech like this, and you'll turn into a statue. And no one gets convinced by a statue. That's what I think. So I'm a big believer in, if you are animated, be animated. If you speak like this or like this, do it. If you move and walk right across the podium, I mean, obviously, Parliament, it might be a bit restrictive, but you can still use your hands. I'm a big believer in moving. In fact, in African politics, which type of president gets elected?
Sorry?
In African politics, which type of president gets elected? I'm talking about free and fair elections, not like where there's rigging and shooting of
the one
voters.
With good, the one with a good charisma and gift of gab.
Yeah, but if you and in Africa, which type of charisma? Even in America, even in church, it's those type of leaders who know how to mix song and dance into their speech. Have you noticed?
Yeah, like at church, yeah. Sometimes a program director and preach. I'm used to do that. Yeah, I think I'm 11 years old doing that. Yeah. But I was just concerned about the moving around.
So don't be concerned. So remember, guys, be yourself and be African, because your audience is based in Africa.
Okay.
If you look at Sia Kolisi, he's always singing Igwijo. So if you remember Jacob Zuma, and his superpower is that he can sing and dance.
Yes.
People will come to a conference angry, but the minute he says Yinde indlela esihambayo, they're gone.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say, if you want to even sing, you can sing. I mean, I just sang now. So you can, because we're Africans. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
It's in our blood. White, black, Indian, or song and dance and the oral way of telling stories. So I think if you're naturally an animated person, don't force it if that's not your nature. But it will make your speech even more compelling.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you for that response, Methembeni. I will just pick two questions from the chat box so that we can wrap up. The first one is, I will be presenting the assessment 2 findings for a project tomorrow. What are the best ways to make a data-heavy technical presentation engaging, easy to follow, and impactful, while ensuring the audience clearly understands and remembers the key findings and recommendations?
Yeah, I think for me, data-heavy presentations is, before you present the data, try to tell the story behind the data. What's the story? Because data is not for nothing, right? What's this data? If data, let's say it's data-heavy because you're talking about profits, tell the story. You know, we used to be a broke company. Yes, I'm telling you, we used to be broke, but now we're making a lot of money. You see how I used very simple words? Then you go into the data. or maybe it's about, I don't know, maybe you're researching disease prevalence. I don't know what you're researching, but I'm trying to give you how, even with heavy just facts and numbers, you can always first tell a story in simple words, the story behind the numbers and the facts and the statistics. And then by the time you move into the actual stats and the graphs and that dense stuff, but people's minds are already captivated. So
Awesome.
one practical example is to tell the story behind the numbers before you speak about the numbers. Or you can start with the numbers and then translate what those numbers mean in simple, more animated, more story type vocabulary. So for example, you present your profits from last year to this year, then you say, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, last year we were broke. This year we're eating like kings. Let's hope our bosses are going to give us raises. You're joking, you're being engaging, you're telling. So they've forgotten the statistics, but they now remember that they were broke, but now they've made a lot of money.
Wow, we are learning, ladies and gentlemen, we are learning. Methembeni, I've got Noluthando. She is asking, let's say we're doing a road show to teach communities about opportunities from mines. Can I apply this method? I think this was based on your presentation. I'm not sure.
Yes, so before I worked as a lawyer, I used to work in NGOs and I used to do these community road shows. I didn't speak about that because that's very specific to communities, but you know, when you do community road shows, you're also doing a bit of adult education. And a lot of these community members, they need some form of entertainment and relief and relief from the daily pressures of life. So one thing we used to do when we used to go out into communities is that we were deliberately, our delivery style was a bit more engaging. It was a bit more entertaining. Have you seen those preschool teachers who dance the Malume dance for their kids? And you hear the kids shouting, Malume, 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 Malume. Now, this might sound ridiculous, but teaching small kids and doing adult community teaching is not too different. Those are two groups which actually like to be entertained. And they remember things more if they're little songs and little skits and little plays for them to hang on to. I'm not saying that you should belittle them and teach them like kids, but they like the softer, entertaining, fun delivery styles. Okay, so I'll give you, for example, I used to do community work and we used to teach people about holding community leaders to account, politicians to account. Okay, and we used to make fun of, in a joking manner, we used to make fun of community members saying, you know what, we teach you guys about human rights, we teach you guys about service delivery, but as soon as a politician comes here with t-shirts and caps, you guys will start dancing and shaking your booty. And then the grannies are like, oh, and then we say, yes, you grannies, you'll be shaking your bums for politicians here because of t-shirts. Then they remember that, yeah, but they're kind of right. Okay, so it's a more entertaining, more provocative style for community members. You can work in things like little plays and little skits. It has to be also quite interactive. They need to say something. They need to be able to write something. It's really the style that really helps for community work is more, think of it like adult education or early childhood education, but for adults.
Thank you very much, Methembeni. I think you have impacted lives in a most profound way with your presentation today. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have gone overboard our time. time. So I'm very unhappy. I wish we could continue with this conversation, but I'm sad to say that before I begin Zobe to do the vote of thanks, I just have a few announcements to make. And before getting to the announcement, I also want to mention this, Methembeni, that from our chats, the engagement of our students has been amazing, from humor to seriousness, especially about that malume in the village. I've had so many comments about people commenting about their dads, their uncles after intoxication, how their public speaking comes freely. So that was very, very interesting. And also to mention that the two scenarios that you gave are the two presentations. The second one about James, it was so impactful and so natural that people took it personal, and they were really, really upset about James. So that is the impact of how you presented the second story. And thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give our speaker a round of applause for such a profound presentation. Can we give him a round of applause before I go to the announcements? Are we still there? I don't see the round of applause coming out, but anyway, I just want to go through a few announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to make you aware that we have a PNET grad pack, and Diksha is going to pitch it up on our screen, which is a valuable resource. It is available on our website, and it is downloadable from the PNET website as well. So let us make use of these resources. They will help us a great deal. The second one is the Grad Next magazine, which is also a downloadable resource that can be useful for those who are in job hunting. And also, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to contact us, we've got our details, our contact details. If you need support, or if you need to know about the events that are coming up, you are most welcome to go to my Unisa events calendar, and that is where you are going to find our calendar of events. And we also have or if you need to get support from our Directorate of Counselling and Career Development, we've got our contact details. You can either email us or make an online appointment, or go to our website, visit our website, or you can visit our YouTube channel. And please also, ladies and gentlemen, rate our seminar today and give us feedback. We will highly appreciate your feedback. At this point in time, I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Begin Zobe, to do the vote of thanks for us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mrs. Makanya. Good afternoon once again to everyone present. As we conclude today's career talk on public speaking and presentation, it is my pleasure to extend a sincere vote of thanks on behalf of the Unisa Directorate for Counselling and Career Development. First, I would like to express our appreciation to our guest speaker, Mr. Methembeni Moyo, for sharing such a valuable insight and practical strategies with us today. Among many valuable takeaways from your presentation was the reminder that public speaking in the 21st century is a superpower. You highlighted that the purpose of public speaking is to persuade, influence, and inspire others. The practical tips and insight you shared on the art of public speaking have equipped our students with valuable skills to communicate with confidence and professionalism. The real-life examples you shared made this concept easy to understand and apply. Once again, thank you, Mr. Moyo, for your continued support and for always making time to empower our students. A special word of thanks also goes to Ms. Makanya for warmly welcoming everyone, introducing our guest speaker, facilitating today's program, and leading the question and answer session with professionalism and excellence. We also extend our sincere appreciation to Ms. Dikshalala for providing technical support behind the scenes and ensuring smooth running of today's event. To all our students and attendees, thank you for joining us today and for your active participation. We hope you leave this session feeling more confident in your ability to communicate effectively and present yourself professionally. Once again, thank you everyone who contributed to the success of this event. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Back to you, Ms. Makanya.
Thank you very much, Peggy. Thank you for that closing. And once again, Mr. Methembeni Moyo, we are humbled and honored to have hosted you today, and we hope this is not the last time. We are still going to bother you. There is still a lot that you have to offer to us, and we are so humbled to have a person of your stature to be with us today. I've heard you speak publicly amongst the great minds of South Africa, and you were a force to be reckoned with amongst the great men. And as a young alumni of Unisa, I must say that we are so proud of you, and we are looking forward to having more engagements with you on our virtual stage. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much to everybody, and have a good day further. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diksha. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Ms. Makanya.
Goodbye.
Bye.